Mate, you went from living like a movie star, cars, clubs, women, right, to facing
Chaos.
30 years in prison overnight. What
A
was the exact
35-year prison sentence. 35-year prison sentence.
Yet, what was the exact moment you realized your life had completely changed?
As soon as the police officer cuffed me and I was standing on a hill with handcuffs and I heard the canine dogs barking around the cars. And I was out in the middle of the country, standing on a hill, seeing all the cars drive by while I was handcuffed. That was a scene from a movie that you only see in the movies, and I was living it. And I said, oh no, this just affected the rest of my life.
So what did you get done for?
Well, yeah, that's a lot. That's, we're here to talk about that. But ultimately, I was charged with transporting cocaine, trafficking.
Shit.
Yeah, That's what they that's what they wanted to put me down on. And well, it is the truth. So that's what it was. I was trafficking cocaine. Fortunately, I had already dropped it off and I was left with a lot of cash in the car. Because if I would have actually still had all of the cocaine in the car, I would have had 100-year sentence and I probably wouldn't have ever gotten out.
Wow.
Yeah, so
So
I only had money in the car.
shit. So walk me through. You got done for cocaine possession, and they arrested you. You went to trial, and
Yep.
then what happened? What was the whole process of the thing?
So that night when they handcuffed me and, booked me in for that night, there's so many blessings and miracles and learning lessons from the journey, right? They were scary at the very beginning of my journey because I had no idea. All I knew, I was handcuffed, I was going to jail. I didn't know anything. But to look back and I survived it, I can tell that God had his hand on me and I was that young kid who was just out of control and God had to slap me to get my attention to say, "Hey, I need you to focus. You have a bigger purpose and mission on this planet, but if you keep screwing up and making these horrible choices, I'm not going to be able to utilize you." And that's what I felt happened. But breaking down the process, I was arrested on the highway in the state of Oklahoma. I had just dropped off probably 50 keys of cocaine
Shit.
in in the East Coast, and I was driving back with hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably almost $1 million. And right when I got arrested, my entire life flashed before my eyes. So everything was slow motion in the physical world, but in your mind, you're like going slow motion because you can't even understand if this is real or not. You didn't know if you were really living life and if it was really over at that point.
Mm.
I get arrested. It's a crazy story, and I'm going to encourage people to go and look for my book, of course, because I was handcuffed to an abandoned building, a warehouse. There was an abandoned building. The
Wow.
story gets pretty crazy and interesting. And I had no idea because I had never been arrested before like that. I've never been arrested, period. No, never. So I didn't know what was happening. I was scared. I didn't know I was going to get killed, murdered, whatever. So that night ended up passing by. And I guess they took me to an abandoned warehouse to seize the drugs, to get
Mm.
everything out of the car. And it took them many, many hours because they couldn't just find it. It wasn't like in the back seat or popped in the trunk. It was hidden in secret compartments in the car.
Wow. Yeah.
So when that happened, they literally handcuffed me to the side of a wall, and I fell asleep with the hands cuffs, and I was there for 4 or 5 hours. They finally got out of the vehicle and they pulled out a lot of money, and then they said there was a kilo of cocaine in the car.
Wow. That's
Which
insane.
I'm not, I don't know if that's the truth or not, but that's what I was accused of. I didn't think there was any keys of cocaine because I had just dropped off all the money, or I had only picked up money and I took all the drugs out of the car.
Yeah.
So when that ended up happening, they booked me in for that night. It was actually like 4, 5, 6 in the morning. And it was pretty crazy because when I went in there, the gentleman that booked me in, he grabbed my driver's license, he looked at everything, and he saw that my license said California. And he said, "Young man, what are you doing all the way out here at 4 or 5 in the morning? I have a son your age. What did you do?" And we started talking. I said, "I made a mistake, sir, this and that." Well, what he ended up doing to me was a miracle and a blessing. There was a holding cell with like 50, 60 guys, right? Drunk, high, racist, violence, gangs, everything. He tells me, because I look like a young little college kid, he ended up telling me, "I'm going to put you over here in this room to keep you out of trouble so you don't get into any problems." So
Yeah.
I didn't even go into the holding cell with everybody that night. He put me in another room. I was able to call home. I called my brother. I said, "Brother, don't be alarmed. Don't be scared, but I'm in jail now.
Mm.
I need you to be calm. I need you to get some of my money, get my cash, and I need you to come fly out here and bail me out now." That's what ended up happening. he he grabbed cash and he went and bought 2 or 3 plane tickets. Him and a friend came out, and I was locked up for probably 2 or 3 days before he came and got me. We found an attorney to fight the case. And it was like a movie from that point on. I flew back to Los Angeles. My brother had taken my BMW to the airport, left it there, flew to Oklahoma to pick me up. And when we got back to Burbank, California, my BMW was gone.
Mm.
It wasn't there anymore. And the night before, the DEA had raided my house. The DEA had raided my house where my mom was at, back in California while I was in jail in Oklahoma. As soon as I bonded out, that they called me, the DEA called me and cursed me out, told me off, and said I was a horrible piece of crap, and then raided the house, and then obviously just took my car. And there was nothing I could do. I called my attorney. My attorney says, "You can go get your car, but they're gonna want to ask you for proof of funds, how you made the money, and this and that." I said, "You guys can have it. It's not no big." I mean, at that point, I was literally, that's what I was doing. And I wasn't denying it. I wasn't trying to fight. They caught me red-handed. And at that point, I knew that I was in for a battle. I did a lot of nights of crying along the way. But this is where my mom, being an anchor in my life, she told me, "Son, God will never put you in a position that you can't handle."
Mm. Yeah.
And when that ended up happening, I ended up I was scared, right? Because the first offer that they gave me was a 50-year sentence on a violent crime, meaning that I will serve 85% of my time. So, of course, we didn't take that, and I knew that I was going to have to hire an attorney. We fought the case for a little over 2 years. They dropped it from a 50-year to a 40-year to a 35-year. And then they dropped it from violent crime to a non-violent crime because it was my first offense. And in a
Mm.
non-violent crime, you end up doing like 30 to 40% of your sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, I got a split sentence, 10 years in, 25 out. But during the time of me fighting the case, it became crazy because I had the DEA following me around the gym, following me around at nightlife. Like, I was being followed all the time and I wasn't aware of it. My mom told me one day that when I was at the gym, when I got out and I came back, I was at the gym working out. My mom told me that the same DEA that raided the house was right there at the gym working out right next to me.
Shit. Oh my God. Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. So how long did you spend in prison in total?
So, okay, so this is where people get confused. It was a 35-year sentence, split sentence, 10 years in, 25 out. In my 10 years, I did about 40%. So, about 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And walk me through that as well, Abe. So walk me through the moment that cell closed and you're in there. What was going through your head, man?
Oh, man. Well, at this moment in time, I didn't flee the country. I, I stayed. We dropped it down. And again, remember, my mom told me that God will never put us in a position that we can't handle. So in my mind, I was trying to be strong, positive. And at that time, also with my attorney, we ended up dropping the case from a federal case to a state case. And he explained to me that if you do Fed time, you're going to do the like 90% or you're going to do day for day. In the state penitentiary, you're going to do a percentage of your time and there's more programs. There's ways that you can get out sooner. He said the state or feds might be a lot nicer, might be a better setup, but you're going to do your entire 10 years.
Shit. Wow.
If we got down to that case. So at that point, I said, let's go state, let's see what we can do. And my attorney, I don't, his job is, it's his job, right? But he told me and convinced me that because it was my first time offense, I'd never been in any problems. There was a high probability that I would have a judicial review after 1 year, meaning that they would review my case. If I stayed out of trouble, if I did programs, they would revisit my case. And then I actually had the opportunity to get out early after a
Mm,
year, right? So I was banking on all of that. I was thinking and hopeful for that. Well, within 4 or 5 months of me being in, my attorney wrote me a letter and said, the district attorney denies your review. You're not getting that.
wow.
So when
Yeah.
that happened, I was shattered. It's like my everything was like, I have a chance in 1 year. I'm gonna have a review. I'm a first time offender. They're not gonna keep me in here.
Yeah.
My attorney told me that they denied it. You're not gonna have it. So I broke down. I started crying. I was punching the wall. I was frustrated. I was sad, just everything. And again, I called my mom crying. I said, Mom, they're not gonna let me out. They're making me stay in here, and I don't know how long I'm gonna do on this 10 years, right? And right during that time, I saw a 19 or 20-year-old young man, young, uh, he gave food to another inmate to just kind of help him, right? But in the prison world, when you give somebody food, you got to pay him back double.
Mm,
So if I give you a top ramen noodle, you owe me two. That's how prison works. You get your food back plus some. Well, this young man loaned out food to help another person in need, expecting two soups back. It was now a month, 2 months go by, 3 months go by, and all of his friends are pressuring him to go and collect his food. The other guy doesn't have anything. So the young gentleman is like, hey, where's my food at? I told you I needed it already. We're going on 3 months, 4 months. It's two soups. Well, he said he didn't have it. His family wasn't supporting him. He didn't have no ways to pay it back. Well, what ended up happening was that young man who loaned out the food wanted to prove a point and wanted to be hard about it. All of his friends told him, don't let that guy just dog you like that. In the middle of the night, he gets up and stabs him with a pencil in his neck and adds 8 more years of a violent crime to his sentence.
mm.
Over 50 cents.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I'm seeing all of these things. And of course, in my brain, never being around that, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen to me? And that's when my entire life changed because I understood the dynamics of where I was at and how I had to take precaution, be careful. My mom told me you got to get on your hands and knees and ask God for a second chance. And this is where I guess people assume, you know, religion. And I'm like, I was there by myself. All I had was me and my heart and my soul and my spirit crying out to God saying I'm by myself and I'm so sorry, I need your help. And I got on my hands and knees. I prayed and I said, Father God, if you give me a second chance and get me out of prison, I will tell the world that it was you who took me from this situation and utilized me in a powerful way. So I cried, I prayed, and my mom told me you needed to make a sacrifice for God. So in prison, I fasted for 40 days. I literally didn't eat. At midnight, I would have a small little cup of coffee and a half of a piece of bread. at midnight, every night for 40 straight days. I lost over 40 pounds.
Wow.
But when that happened, and some people believe me and some people don't, the way I describe it is the Holy Spirit was injected into me. I reached a completely different level of consciousness, a different level of spirituality that most people can't comprehend. And that's because everyone is so distracted with the world. This is a whole nother topic that, that we could get into,
Yep.
that we can separately discuss. But I realized during my fasting, I was detoxifying myself, and all my senses were more heightened. I was aware. I was able to see. I was able to think. I was able to tap into the gifts that God had given us. So when I started to, after I prayed, I fasted, I started to dream and have visions, and God started speaking to me, and He started sharing with me the future. And when all of this ended up happening, I started to see the word forever faith. I started to see faith, have faith, have faith. I'm here with you, young one. Have faith. And what I ended up doing was writing out all these different messages that I saw in my brain while I was in prison. So I started writing on whatever I could with crayons, pencils, napkins, toilet paper, prison paperwork. I still have it all today. And I call it the business plan from prison because I wrote on the paperwork that I would get out and make an impact in this world. I would start an apparel company. I would start a message. I would start a movement. I'd be traveling the world, sharing the testimony and the journey that what God has done for me. And so I wrote it all out. And I started telling everybody about all of the dreams I had. They thought I was on drugs.
Mm.
They thought I was high.
Yeah. So was your decision to do the 40-day fast, was that to sort of get some sort of mental clarity of the situation that you were in, or?
Well, to answer that specifically, I did that because that's what my mom told me to do.
Right.
Because I was at a point where I was lost and confused doing things on my own. I wasn't following any guidance. I had no mentors. All of the coaches in my life, obviously, I don't want to say abandoned me, but I'm in prison now. So I didn't have any father figures or mentors to help me. So my mom was the only one that said, God is your mentor. God is your leader. God will help you. So she didn't explain what it was going to do to me, but I started to understand internally what was happening during the fast. And what I realized was everything in this world is a distraction, from food to music to entertainment to women
Mhm.
to just all of the chaos in this world takes us away from being the best internal man or woman that we can be. We're so programmed to think about life from a responsive manner as opposed to being a producer, right? So this all just came to me as I was now stripped. All I had was myself and God in a prayer every
Mm.
day. That's all I had. And speaking to God was a lot more powerful, intellectual, spiritual than talking to a few of the other inmates.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and I was able to understand, comprehend, and grow on my own spiritually.
Mm.
And most people won't understand that.
Yeah. You're right too, man. A lot of people are distracted, and we are so bombarded with stress and an influx of emails, and
Yes.
we're glued to our phone. What was a revelation that you learnt about yourself? So obviously having your own time to think and process what happened, what came to you like throughout that whole experience, like your thoughts, like what did you learn most about yourself?
Well, I learned that everything that I thought was important had no value.
Mm.
When I was out and I was transporting cocaine and I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in my account or hidden, and I'd go out to the club and spend $10,000 with a group of people, bunch of guys, bunch of girls. Not one of them was there in prison. Not one of them came there to visit me. Not one of them wrote me a letter. Not one of them sent me $20 for food. So I realized that everything I was living was fake anyway. And most people are not there by your side to really help you grow. They're there because of whatever they can get from you. And there's not too many people on this planet that'll take a bullet for you. There's not too many people on this planet that are going to help you when you're down. They're not going to pay your bills if you can't get them paid. So I was living for all of that when I didn't even pay attention to myself. And I don't know why it is, but society programs us to think that we're selfish if we think about ourselves. And it's the complete opposite. We should be thinking about ourselves to get bigger or better and stronger mentally, spiritually, physically, so you then can become the best version of yourself to help other people.
So true.
Because if you're not at the best that you can be, how are you going to help other people? So one of the things that I saw in prison was when we put God first, ourself second, that's the mindset of champions. That's a phrase in my company that was created, but it's God first, yourself second. Now you building yourself, God having that building block for you, you being a force now, you can now go help other people in this world. But you
Yeah.
can't do that if you're broke. You can't do it if you don't have the mental and spiritual capacity.
Mm.
So I realized that I was living for the wrong things. And I realized that I wasted all those years partying and doing stupidities that did nothing for my future. And it isn't until you come rock bottom crashing down, the DEA takes away your toys and you have nothing. And you say, well, man, what was all that for anyway? So while I was in there, I obviously had lots of time to think. And I said, we're, one of the things that I realized was I didn't know anything about drugs or cocaine before I started driving it. When I started to listen to the music that I was listening to was literally educating me. If you listen to the music, some of these rappers are literally telling you how much it costs to get a key of cocaine from Mexico or Colombia to Los Angeles, and then how much it costs when you move it from LA up to Florida, and how much it grows in value. You don't know these things, but you're reciting the lyrics, and the lyrics are telling you. And before you knew it, I was brainwashed into thinking I was really a drug mule. And I started to do it. And I
Mm.
started to take the money and spend it on exactly what you see in the music videos. A diamond chain, diamond earrings, some glasses, a car, your shoes. All of a sudden you have $100,000 on your body.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. You
Yeah.
made an interesting point too, Abe, that you had a difficult time wondering about the friends or people that you had in your life, and people are only really going to sort of show their true colors in a time of crisis. What did that teach you about loyalty and friendship and who you can trust and bring in life?
Man. One of the things that I've said now for the last few years is no one likes to speak about the truth.
Mm.
It's too uncomfortable. The truth is uncomfortable to bear. Nobody likes to take responsibility when we make mistakes and errors. We're programmed to point the finger at somebody else and say, oh, well, I messed up because this person. I didn't do it right because that person. Everybody is programmed to respond in life like that. And it isn't until you dig down deep and say, I messed up. I did it wrong. I need to fix it. That's when life changes, but most people don't have that ability. So I realized that all of these people that they're not bad people. And again, I'm not knocking people, but this is a deep conversation that most people don't get into, is that the programs that we're all living don't allow us to see further past that. Nobody wanted to spend $20 on me in prison when they could spend $20 at night at a nightclub. The reality is just harsh and difficult. And I learned that, and that's okay. And I'm not upset with it. But that's another reason my mission is to bring out truth and to help people see things in a completely different perspective and light,
Mm.
because they get to another level of understanding. And we're not judging everyone, because I'm not judging those people that didn't give me support. I understand that they were scared, they were limited, they weren't in the best position that they could be in to help me. So, it just becomes challenging, but all we could do is help each other become more aware. I think information is so powerful. Information is knowledge, information is currency, right? If we have the right information, I always tell people when I do speaking engagements, I say, what's the difference between a rich person and a poor person? Some people will say money and this and then. I say, no, it's just information. The information that a poor person receives, most likely they'll never receive the same information that a rich person heard about. The rich person, the successful person, was at an event or a club and said, hey, there's a new product coming out into the market. I'm going to invest into it about 3 years early. This is going to make us millions of dollars. Those are the type of conversations you have when you're in the intellect. The poor people are hanging out on the street drinking beer and 40 and talking about who they want to hook up with that night and spend the only $20 that they have in their bank account on drugs.
Mm.
That's just the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what did rock bottom really feel like when you're staring at a prison ceiling, wondering if your life was over?
You know what? In my 4 years, I only felt like that the first year, the first 7, 8 months. I only felt like it was over at that point. But when I called my mom, because I got the letter from my attorney that says you won't be getting out, I cried, of course. I cried. But I talked to my mom, and again, my mom said, God will never put you in a position you can't handle. God sent you on this journey for a purpose, Abraham. Abraham is the father of faith. Abraham is the father of many nations. I started a company during a fast, a sacrifice that's called Forever Faith. All of these things I wasn't aware of until in prison. And when that happened, I understood and realized that God had to teach me a lesson to prepare me for the journey he had in front of me. There's a lot of successful people, right? According to the standards of the world, of multimillionaires and have money. But I know a lot of men and women that have millions of dollars. They're cheating on their wives. They're getting drunk and high every day. They're not happy with the millions of dollars that they have. So the millions of dollars just gives them access to objects and materialistic things to make them feel better. It doesn't mean that internally they're strong. And
Mm.
I learned how to dig deep internally to where I can control my mind. That's what I learned while I was in prison, because everything was taken away from me. So all I had was a vision and a dream in my mind, knowing that I would get out in 4 years and make a global impact. Because I said that same thing while I sat in a cell. And
Mm.
I was already convinced from it. I knew that God already had the plan for me. So after the 7, 8 months of depression, sadness, I got up and I told my mom, I started writing on all the letters. I said, Mom, I'm strong. Don't worry about me. You stay strong, you stay positive, and you forever keep your faith. Because me, I'm at Boy Scout camp preparing to take over the world.
Mm. So, would you say prison was the blessing in disguise? Like it wasn't your greatest failure, but in fact, it was an actual blessing?
You can call it my greatest accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yes, because it shook me straight. It scared me straight. It stripped all of the horrible habits I had, because that's all it did. It stripped me of the old me, and I had to we had to rebuild ourselves from the ground up.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
had to rebuild myself with the thought process of putting God first and me second. And every day was growth. Every day was reading. Every day was writing. Every day was training. Every day was preparation for whenever the day came that I would be getting out. And I didn't know when I would get out. So I had to stay strong, faithful, and disciplined every single day.
Yeah. I read somewhere too, Abe. So growing up in a drug and gang infested neighborhood in Los Angeles, um, were there internal battles you were fighting long before prison?
You know, I, I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the hood, sports was always my blessing. So even though I grew up in those neighborhoods, I still got to play sports, and sports took me out of those environments. So I stayed in Pasadena, I stayed on Marengo, and my coach would come pick me up, take me out to a whole nother city, practice basketball for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and then bring me back to my reality. They would take me out of the hood, take me to nice areas, and I got to see the rest of the cities in the state, California. But then I would have to go sleep in my one-bedroom apartment with roaches and everything else. Um, and yeah, I got into a lot of fights when I was younger, but I never got caught in drugs. I never got caught up. I was friends with gang members and drug dealers, but I never got myself into any of that.
Yeah.
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 I got to a point where I was just tired of being poor. You grew up in poverty all your life. I played college football, college basketball, which of course gave me another vision of the world. It allowed me to see more than just my city and state. Going to a college campus, running around with so many different people from different walks of life, start to open up your mindset and your perspective of what's in this world. So
Mm.
I started to see more. I started seeing all the guys and girls wearing awesome clothing and better shoes and driving cars. And I said, I want the same. How do I get it?
Yeah.
And in college, I was cutting hair as a football player. I would cut people's hair to make extra money. And, so I always had that mentality to work hard to do more, but then I broke the law and did it the wrong way,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
read too, Abe, it said that you were professionally working towards a goal in athletics. So basketball, I think.
Football and
Um,
basketball.
Football and basketball, yeah. And it was an injury that ended that. What was the injury?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, during my high school career, I had two injuries.
Oh shit.
In basketball, I started as a true freshman on the varsity basketball team. So I was the youngest kid on the team at 13 or 14 years old, playing with seniors. And I ended up starting, and we went all the way to the CIF championship, won a CIF championship. I had to guard Baron Davis. You know who Baron Davis is?
No.
He was in the NBA. He went to UCLA, and then he played for a couple of different professional teams
Oh,
and the
okay.
NBA.
Yep. All right.
So I got to play against a lot of guys that went pro. And in my brain, I felt I was just as good. I had the opportunity. Um, but in my sophomore year during football, I got a little hurt, but I bounced back. But my senior year, I had a 300-pound lineman land on my knee and stretched my knee out. And I had a media MCL kind of partial tear. My medial collateral ligament opened up and I was sidelined. And I had a big old brace when I came back. And, my junior year, I was an All American. And I had 13 interceptions in 10 games. I was being recruited by Notre Dame, UCLA, Florida State, Nebraska, all of them. My grades dropped. My senior year, I got hurt. I lost all offers. And I came back from the injury and I ended up at a Division III college, which I'm proud to say I still played college football and I went there and succeeded. We went 14-1. My career there was like 17-1 in a year and a half before I dropped out and left. And then we won another conference championship there where I started and had a great career. So my visions and dreams were to make it as a pro athlete in either sport. And I felt I was good to do either one. But again, the influence of the world, me being poor, me wanting more so fast, I started chasing money in college and I got involved in network marketing. And some of the people that I was working with were already making way more than $100,000 a month
Mm.
at 19, 20, 21 years old. And I was barely 18 going on 19. And I said, how do I get in on that? Well, what ended up happening was I had a little bit of success. And I remember I had a $3,000 month, $8,000 month. Then I jumped up to 15,000. I think $25,000 in 1 month is what I made while I was in college. And when that ended up happening, my leaders that were teaching me, they said, you're not going to get to 100 grand a month like we're doing if you're in school and if you're playing football. You need to leave all that behind and focus.
Mm.
So I dropped out of college, left school, left football, did that. And a year later, I jumped up, made a lot of money, but that company ended up folding and going bankrupt. I was
Yeah.
left high and dry, no sports, no education, just a little bit of money in my pocket that I ended up spending at the club every weekend anyway.
Yeah. So after your sporting career had sort of taken a deep dive,
Right.
and before the events that led you into prison, what were some of the warning signs or alarm bells that were going off? You know, the people that you were associating with, where did that path sort of take you?
You know, that happens when you jump into the nightlife. You go to the nightlife, 1,000 people go to a club. You start meeting people from all walks of life. You start meeting girls from all over the place, and you start doing just dumb things to fit in, to be cool. Everyone wants to dress a certain way. Everybody wants to wear a certain watch or jewelry. So I started just getting around people that were everybody was materialistic. Everyone's programmed to do that. And I don't say it in a insulting bad way. It's nice to have. I don't have a watch. I sold my last Rolex years ago. I sold it because I didn't want it. And plus, I'm only going to wear my own brand now anyway. I'm going to produce my own watch. So, um, just being around those people you start picking up horrible habits, whether that's not going to sleep late, whether that's drinking late, people with drugs. I never did drugs, so I never got caught up into that life. I got into partying and some drinking liquor and stuff like that, but it was money that I was after. It was just focused on money and how we make money. So
Yeah.
being around the wrong people.
And that idea or fixation on being able to obtain money, did that sort of stem from childhood? Because you did mention as well, man, you grew up not so much poor, but money was a bit tight.
No, I mean it was poor. It was poor. I mean, I
It
grew up in a one
was.
bedroom apartment all my life. It was me, my brother, my sister, and my mom. We all slept, we had one bed. We either slept on bunk beds or the floor. We slept in the living room. I remember, picking cockroaches out of my cereal, stuff like that. Just that was a normal life for me. All I would do is pick out the cockroach, throw it away, and continue to eat my cereal.
Mm.
So going through that obviously played an effect on me wanting more faster. And as I got older and started looking at the different avenues in life of how you make money, and the truth is, when I was in college and I made my first $20,000 month, I made in 1 month what some of my professors barely made a year.
It's crazy, man.
So, I said, wait a minute, how are you going to teach me how to make money when in 1 month I'm making almost your whole year's salary? You only make a little bit more than that. So I make more than them in 2 months for what they're doing in the whole year. And, the mentality that I learned at that point, I started getting into self education, entrepreneurship. I started listening to Jim Rohn, John C. Maxwell, Les Brown, all of these, Tony Robbins, these entrepreneurs. And I started to read their books and listen. And then I understood the different mentalities between the rich and the poor. And that poor people, trade their hard work and time for dollars. So that's where I understood, well, I got to trade my ideas. Ideas create unlimited amounts of money and wealth. You come up with an idea and that can pay you for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So you just have to figure out how you do that. And at a young age, we don't understand that. We're just learning. But I developed the mentality of thinking bigger at an early age.
Yeah, yeah. And you did, man. You built a multi-million-dollar brand after losing everything. What was the mindset shift in building that brand?
Well, again, being stripped at rock bottom, literally rock bottom, I don't know what other feeling could be worse than that. So it wasn't there's no fear in your thought process at that point. You're already stripped down. You have to build yourself back up, walk up the mountain. If you slip down the mountain, you just get right back up and keep walking, you know. At that point I was focused. Now at the end of the day, I'm still going to come back and always give the credit to God, because it was God's, I would call, wake up moment for me to say, you better get up. God had my attention. He said, "Are you? If you're prepared to carry out your mission, this is the time." So I had to sacrifice myself, my thought process in prison, to understand that God had a bigger purpose for me. Because if it was just me, I would have gotten out of prison and said, "All right, how do I make more money?" I wouldn't have been focused on a mission and a purpose. And right when I got out, I wasn't thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about how can I make tons of money. I was thinking about God gave me a vision and a message to deliver to the rest of the world. And that's forever faith mindset of champions. And it just so happens that it had to be on clothing. And I didn't know anything about clothing. So
Mm,
I had to learn the process from zero. But I've heard it over and over again. God doesn't give you a vision or a dream based on your bank account. He gives you a vision and your dream based on the faith that you put in him. And when you put all your faith and thought process in him, he'll pave the way. He'll bring everything that you need to. And that's my only explanation now, is that he's brought angels along the way to be a blessing in my life to help me get to this point. I didn't do any of this by myself. There's been a number of people who've made large sacrifices to help me to get to this point.
mm. What do you think was the first small step that you took mentally and spiritually that started kickstarting your comeback?
Well, that moment had to have been in prison when I fasted for 40 days. Because when I fasted for 40 days, we could call it like a light switch went off. It's like the old light bulb dimmed out and it was done. As soon as I started to fast, the new light went on, the light switch got turned on. My life and my brain and my mindset started to see the whole world in a completely different thought process. And I would say that God had injected divisions for my future. So that fasting, and realistically, when you start to understand how the body works, all fasting does is allow you to detox from the chaos and the filth of the world. And that could be from food, sugars, um, entertainment, it's like just so much filth is in your brain and your body. So by me dissecting and detoxifying was like a whole new beginning for me to think completely different.
Mm. For anyone that's listening to this conversation, Abe, and they feel like their life is completely ruined, what would you say to them?
I would tell them their life is absolutely not ruined. I would tell them that I understand that there's pressure and stress that's calling at them. But again, the short answer is put God first and yourself second.
Mm,
That's the mindset of champions. You will be able to overcome whatever obstacles in front of you when you put God at the forefront.
yeah. And you do, man. You talk about mindset of champions, and it's mentioned in your book as well. Can you talk about that mindset of champions? How did that eventuate?
Well, as I again go back to prison and fasting, I started to write out on pieces of paper the mission and the vision and everything that I had seen. And I remember I said, okay, well, me being a former athlete, you win championships, you're able to win some things. But at the end of the day, in the world, seeing wealthy people have a financial gain doesn't mean they're a champion, right? What I believe that is that when we truly engage and we get locked into becoming the best version of ourselves, that's when we become champions in this world. But my belief is that you will not do that until we put God first.
Mm,
Once we put God first, it's like automatically you become that best champion of yourself for your life, for your world, for your family. You go through those phases where you get and develop the mindset of champions.
yeah, yeah. So, what do you think separates talented people from disciplined champions?
That's a great question. That's a great topic. Talent is cool because there's some gifting in there, there's some abilities in there, but I would definitely say that discipline will beat talent any day, because discipline means that we're going to get up and we're going to work every single day regardless of how we feel. A talented person usually is getting up and doing some incredible things sporadically once in a while. But discipline happens every single day, and discipline happens to lead to a better success overall in life, right? If we talk about being talented, what does that actually mean? What does talented mean to you?
I think talent is something that you can be born with, and I kind of use it like singing. You can be a talented singer, you could just be born to sing, or even some of those people that are fantastic artists, they already have that talent within them. I mean, you can
Right,
go to art school and learn how to draw, but nothing, I guess, is the same as if you were born to be an artist. And I
right,
think having talent's good, and a perfect example of this is if you look at former two-time UFC division Conor McGregor. He believed so much within himself that his discipline and his work ethic was able to beat talent, and I think
right,
that's the biggest difference.
right. I agree 100%. And that's why I asked you your thought on it, because you could have a talented fighter or a talented artist. And what that usually means is they might be ahead of the pack because they have some talent. But if you have that drive of discipline, every single day you're going to chip away and become better. You're going to become better, more focused, and you will grow. And discipline in time will catch up to that talented one and outperform it.
Uh,
And that's what discipline does, because when you're disciplined in life, like, that's the one thing that I talk about now, even in my business structure with my team, is our discipline. I not only wake up to go train every single day in the weight room, I also eat the same food every single day because of discipline. I don't eat food because I enjoy the way it tastes. I don't eat food because I want to go out and celebrate. I eat food in order for my muscles to recover, to heal, so I'm able to perform better the next day and have a result.
mm,
That comes from extreme discipline. That doesn't come from talent. That comes from just being disciplined, doing the same thing over and over again. And the things that I've learned along the journey about the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, we all focus, I say we, I speak myself in there, that we all focus on discipline, is getting up and doing what you want to do, even though you feel like you don't want to do it that
yep,
day. You got to do it. We have
yep.
to get up and do it. And it relates to all areas of life. And the more disciplined you are all around in life, the more successful you're going to be at everything that you do.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true, man. I think a lot of people can take away from this discipline. I've heard Jocko Willink. Do you know who Jocko Willink is, Abe?
Yes, yes, I've heard, of course. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, former Navy SEAL. He has a podcast. He is an entrepreneur. Very widely spoken about discipline that and how it equals freedom. And I apply that in my life too, man. I think doing the things where you don't feel like doing it just has such a profound effect. Like leg day, right? I train legs twice a week. I'll hit posterior chain one day, and then I'll hit more quads
Yeah.
another day. After every leg session, man, I'm fucking sick. I feel like throwing up. But I know that it just has such a profound effect. 80% of the time, I never feel like working out, but I always do. And it does, man. It does. It has a ripple effect in everything you do, not just in your
Straight.
physicality and fitness, but
No.
also your business too. Hey.
Everything, mentally, spiritually, socially, economically, which leads to that. All of it makes a difference in our world, our discipline across the board.
Mm.
Food is such a huge one, because I don't know what's more distracting, food or women.
Yes, so true, man. Yeah.
But either way, it's the same thing to pull you off track. And
Mm.
discipline is required to control yourself.
Yeah. Even lust as a man, that's another thing, being disciplined. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. You know, too, like there's a dating crisis happening at the moment. And many men, especially, I think 50% of men are not even going out seeking relationships anymore. They're retreating to porn and weed and video games. It's a terrible thing, lust, and what it
Oh
can do to a
man.
man.
So sad, so sad. And and it doesn't help on the other side because the women are are also, so the men are programmed, right, and influenced into everything you just said. And then we have the women that are also programmed and influenced on a whole nother side of what it means to be a woman in 2026 now. You have a different meaning of what a woman is versus 10 years ago,
Mm,
which to your point has created higher divorce rates, or some people don't even want to attempt to do it.
yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, there is, man. There's a massive divide between men and women. Um, I think also too that men can take away that if you start with you, and as you said, you use that analogy of putting God first and then putting you second, because it does, man. It has a ripple effect. If you
Right.
focus on yourself, everyone else benefits. And you're in a better headspace to look after other people. It's that old school in saying, when you're on the airplane, you put on your own oxygen mask before you
Right.
help
Help
everyone
other
else.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to men out there that lack discipline, or maybe they are disciplined, but they don't know the right way to go about it? Like your phone, man, that's got to be a huge distraction. And I'm a culprit too. I think we're all addicted to our fucking phones.
We are. And I talk I well, we all go through different times in our life. My time in my life now, uh, by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I'm listening to Napoleon Hill or Neville, and I'm listening to it all night long. I leave it on repeat all night long. So what is that? That's discipline. But what I'm actually doing is reprogramming myself every single night. I wake up at whatever 5:30, 6:30. I say a prayer. I give God thanks for and praise for another day. And I go right back to listening to Napoleon Hill and Neville for the next hour. While I'm
Is
brushing my teeth, I'm showering. That's what I'm listening to.
is Napoleon Hill? Is that the book Think and Grow Rich? Is that
Think Big
right?
and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And he incorporates all of it: thought process, attraction, manifestation. And it really is so basic, but our programming keeps us away from it. What do most people do? They get up, they check their phone, they're hoping a girl messaged them on Instagram. They go on through their day, they're drinking coffee, ruining their teeth, going to Starbucks, looking at the billboards, upset and frustrated how they can't do something in life, they're late on their bills. Their whole focus is on all of that,
Mm,
but they're not focused on improving. So if you take control of your morning and your night, you're controlling your thought process on your mind and where that's headed. But if you wake up to respond and see, let me see what's here, you're responding to phone messages and phone calls, and you're not taking anything and being disciplined to control it yourself.
yeah.
So it's important to take that step in reprogramming yourself so you're in control of your thoughts.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting too. Thoughts become things. Everything that we do in life all comes from thought. And a lot of people talk nowadays about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and how that has such a huge effect on not just your own sort of mental well-being, but also your ability to be able to create, value, whether it be financial gain or something like that.
Right?
Um,
That's true.
yeah. When you founded Forever Faith, what was your first real move? So what would you have done differently today?
Differently? Well, I'm not sure. I started it while I was in prison. So you going back to conscious and subconscious, there's a great point to that. If I was if I was in my vehicle and I had cocaine in the back of the car and I'm listening to music and I'm reciting the music, what am I using? My conscious mind or my subconscious mind?
Your subconscious.
Right? Because that's the programming that has brought me into, I'm transporting cocaine, I'm singing along to some music. I'm kind of like I'm in this program phase. right? When the cop arrests me and now I'm scared, now where am I? I'm
Conscious.
now in my conscious state. All of a sudden, what is going on? I'm
Mm,
not in control. We're all programmed to live out a subconscious program every day. We don't know what's happening. We're an autopilot, walking around like zombies, eating our Starbucks, coffees, and donuts, and you know, going in or whatever it is, TikTok, porn, whatever it is. So when I was in prison and I realized all of this, I really made a conscious effort into being in the moment and taking control of my thoughts. If I have a bad thought, I actually talk myself out of it now. I don't allow the influence of other people's words, vocabulary, or behavior to throw me off track. I don't allow that. I'm in a completely different state to where people probably think I'm obnoxious and arrogant. But I tell them, no, I'm neither of those. I'm just aware of what's going on right now.
mm,
And once we truly get to that point, because that's a great point that you made, I was in a conscious state, living, readjusting my subconscious program to where I'm in control of that program now.
uh,
So when you get to that point where your subconscious is reprogrammed by yourself, now you're in a conscious state of your program.
yes. Yeah,
That takes work.
it does, man. Yeah. So, how much of entrepreneurship, how much of mindset plays a role in your ability to create wealth?
I think, man, if I had to give a perspective, if I had to give a number, I would say 80 to 90%, 85 to 90%.
Wow.
I would think that the other 10 and 15% that's missing comes from the 80% of the conscious state of attracting or creating. You have to be in that conscious state to create. Once you're creating, the other 10% that we're lacking is the filling gaps of the relationships that you've molded and brought into your life to create opportunity, right? A lot of people say that being lucky is simply when preparation meets opportunity. I know I use the example of fitness way back in the day. I would train and be disciplined every single day only to be prepared for a photo shoot because I knew one of the magazines would be calling me. Sometimes I'd have to be prepared for over a year because I just knew that they would call. I didn't know how long. And even in this journey of forever faith, I knew that we would get to the point of growth, millions of dollars. I mean, now my thought process is hundreds of millions as we move on to $1 billion enterprise. And I believe that's the case.
Mm,
Because you just got to go through steps. Now, God's law, God's universe, there's a lot of times where you jump levels very quickly. And that happens because of how truly aligned you are and connected with God, with the spirit, with the universe. When you have that connection, it's all going to come into a sequence and everything is aligned and it just goes smoothly. When you're not in alignment, you're creating chaos and it just doesn't work.
yeah.
I talk a lot about the words. You said it, thoughts become things. Words become something, right? So what we think about, we speak about becomes something. So important to make sure that we're talking about something great and powerful and leading us into an incredible direction. Because if we sit here and focus on how horrible, if we're not good at something, we already know we're not good at something. We don't need to sit here and verbalize it. What we need to be focused on is how do we get better? What do I need to do to become more at that? I need to run more. I need to think more. I need to read more books. I need to listen to more podcasts. I need to connect with better people. Well, other people are saying, man, I'm so slow. And then I gained weight and I can't do this because that. My girlfriend cheated on me. My mom passed away. My feet hurt. I just got hurt. Like they're focusing on all of the things that separate them from moving forward.
Mm, yeah. And it's mindset that I think, as you were mentioning, 80 to 85% of it is mindset. What about the people that influence our lives? And I've heard that quote, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. The people that you hang around has such a profound effect on the direction on where we want to go in life. So for anybody that is aspiring entrepreneurship and wants to start a business, How do they eat? Where do they go? Like, who are the type of people that they need to sort of seek advice from? And then also the friends that they're hanging around as well. Like, what advice would you be to aspiring entrepreneurs?
Well, again, as I mentioned earlier, that the truth is very painful sometimes.
Hmm.
So we have to be truthful to ourselves to figure out if those people that we're hanging around every day are really bringing value to our life or if they're creating chaos. You know what I mean? Are they a liability or are they an asset to our mission, our purpose, and what we want to do? If they're an asset, then you stay with them and we work together. If they're a liability, you got to cut cord quickly and say, I can't do this anymore. I need to move on. I need to find somebody better. So being truthful to yourself is so important. And then after that, yes, it's our currency now is relationships. We're only as good or as valuable as the people that we know or we associate with. So, you know, we only have so much time in a day to associate and connect with people. And some of us grow and become more conscious of how to do that at a more valuable level. And it's a step by step process. I would tell people, don't rush into thinking success is just overnight. We hear about it all the time. The overnight success took 10 years.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. It's
And
so
it's the
true.
same thing with me. I've been on a roller coaster of this. I got out of prison. I started a clothing line. By year 3, I was offered $4 million to buy it. I ended up getting into a lawsuit 6 months later by the same people who offered me the buyout. They filed a lawsuit on me, put me down for another 4 years. So now I couldn't sell or do anything with the brand. I took them to trial, one in court, one in trial. It was a very difficult time for my family. I just had a son. Financially was very difficult to go through a battle for 4 years, paying attorneys, having to travel, do all these things. I fought the case. I won it. My mindset stayed strong and firm and disciplined the whole time. Unfortunately, my wife couldn't handle the challenge mentally. We ended up having a divorce. We fought for 2 years because I told her that after I won the lawsuit, I was going to relaunch the brand and take over the world. She didn't want to go through that journey again because it was so difficult the previous 4 years of the lawsuit.
Mm.
So I got to the point. I wrote a book. COVID hit. Me and my ex-wife at the time separated, got a divorce. I had to deal with that blow now of a divorce, losing a house, having issues with my child. All these other obstacles and challenges kept at me, but not once did I actually stop. And I mean, I cried. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect man, but I couldn't allow those challenges to stop me or block me mentally. I had to figure out what a solution was to keep moving forward. And that's
Mm.
exactly what I did. So I utilized every situation as a trampoline to get right back up and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Pain can be one of the biggest motivators for growth, and it can like rocket launch you out of a particular position that you might find yourself in.
Right.
What's something that pain has taught you, Abe, on helping you not just in business and entrepreneurship, but also relationships?
Yeah. What I've learned is that you can't get to anything that's worth value or to greatness or to something that's substantially valuable without a little bit of pain and suffering. You can't have a diamond without the pressure of it being boiled up, broken down, and going through that rough spot before it turns into that beautiful, perfect diamond.
Mm.
That's just how life is. In order to grow, I mean, just as an athlete or anybody else, when we hit puberty, our bones start stretching, our body, our skin starts stretching. We go through pain and suffering to blossom into that next level of being a human, an adult. So I think that we have to embrace the journeys, embrace the pain and suffering, and know that those are the first signs of blessings, miracles, and success that are right in front of you. So you have to embrace them, appreciate them, and use them to keep you moving forward.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. What were the biggest mistakes you made building your business that a
Oof.
lot of aspiring entrepreneurs should avoid?
Wow. Well, I realized today that I did everything backwards. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have money. I had a vision and a dream, but that's again where I say that if you're truly in your calling and you truly connect with God, I believe that God will put you and send you in the direction that you need. So there's one, it's funny because you asked me about entrepreneurship, right? And as you start talking with investors and you start talking about the business world of things, everyone wants to see how polished and perfect you are and how you have the business plans and you have your statistics and you have it
Mm,
all laid out. Well, that's just different. And at the end of the day, I can't speak on that because I didn't do it that way. I did it with all odds against me. I did it with statistics saying that I'm going to fail. And all I can say is that, again, the mindset of champions means when we put God first and ourselves second. Because if we put God at the forefront of our business, what does that mean? God gives us the direction, God gives us the understanding of how to grow, develop, and become more. So we have to become more in order to develop this business. And I've learned the rough way. I flew to Mexico, I flew to Colombia, I flew to Pakistan. I just got back from Nigeria. I learned how to get factories. I learned how to source fabric. I developed and learned the apparel game. I just had to learn.
mm,
So you have the other traditional way, and that's going to school, getting an education, and having them teach you the safest thing that you can do. But I would say statistically, the biggest brands in the world weren't created that way.
no, 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 that's so true, Abe. So, what does scaling from an idea to a multi-million dollar
Oof.
brand actually require that most people underestimate?
The pressure,
Mm,
the pressure and the reality of how you have to be built a certain way. And you know what? There's levels to everything. You go from your first $100,000 to 500,000 to millions to 5 million to like every level is a new level of pressures. Because then when you all of a sudden you have to hire employees, you have to get office space, you have to put together a system. Everything is time, effort, and money and knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge or the right people around you, then you can't do those things. That requires a lot of time and experience, and relationships. I don't know how to do a lot in my business. Fortunately, I have a business partner, Jeff Smith, who's an incredible brain behind the operation. I taught him everything very basic. He knew when I flew to these factories and I explained to him this is how I do orders. I write them out on my phone in text messages and I send them to the factories. And he said, "That's horrible. That's not a system. There's no way we can grow and do more." And he was right. It requires your circle of people. You got to be around the right people that make you grow, that push you to another level. Um,
mm,
and God continues to send people into my life to push me and allow me to grow more.
yeah. If someone wants to start a business today, Abe, and they feel stuck, what would you say would be the three practical steps that they could take?
Well, I think that the first step, I'm always going to say it, is ask God for clarity. And there's a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, that are going to give you their basic book outline on what to do. But I believe that we're under such a horrible programming. We're programmed robots.
Yeah,
Everyone's programmed to enjoy hamburgers and hot dogs and French fries. But let's stop and think about that consciously right now, and you'll understand how I'm tying this all together. What does eating a hamburger, a hot dog, and French fries do for you in business and success?
doesn't help much at all.
Okay, it doesn't help much. Do you think it potentially could help you go into a negative?
Negative, yeah.
Well, let's break it down. That hamburger, that hot dog, the French fries, putting garbage into your body lowers your IQ. Putting garbage into your body slows down your digestive system. Your cholesterol rises. Now you're starting to create issues for yourself health wise. If you have health issues, how are you strong up here?
Mhm.
So what we put into our body is just as important what we put into our mind. It's a combination. It's a well balanced. You could be the smartest person in the world, but have horrible health that could still affect you in your business. So when you understand that everything that goes into your mind, your stomach, your mouth, it affects what you do. So you need to start asking, what do I do? Well, ask God for clarity and do the right things in life. When God gives you clarity, He sends you the answers. And I think the answer is, I'm not telling everyone to go detox and fast, but what I am saying is you have to pay attention into your behavior and your decision making every day. Because if you're not at your best inside of you, you're not going to be at your best here in your mind. Training physically helps you, obviously, physically, but it does so much more for your brain. It does so much more for your confidence. So many entrepreneurs that are so intelligent and smart, they rely on numbers, statistics, and past examples of success. That has nothing to do with you, though. You're not even throwing yourself into the equation of any value. You're looking at the market, you're looking at the statistics of everything except yourself. That's not how an entrepreneur works. An entrepreneur has to look at how hard am I? What am I willing to go through? What am I willing to sacrifice? Do I really want this journey? There's a saying that I joke about college football. Nick Saban, Alabama winning coach. He says everyone wants to play college football until it's time to play college football.
Mhm.
When they find out that they have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning because they have 5 a.m. practice for 2 hours, and then they got to go and they got to eat, and they got to go to class, then they got to come back at 12 to do weightlifting for another 2 hours. Then they go eat, then they go back to class, and then they at 6 p.m. they got night practice. And then at 8 p.m. they have video chalk talk. And then at 10 and 11 p.m., then they got ice buckets, they got refreshing, then you got to train again. And then you got to
Yeah.
repeat and do that all over again. And there's where the saying of only the strong survive.
Mm.
Because an entrepreneur isn't, what the statistics say. It's not the right business plan. I mean, I've heard Donald Trump say about 5 or 6 times that he had friends that he didn't invest in when they were younger. And he's seen a number of them. He saw a handful of friends with business plans. Perfect, looked incredible. All of them failed. He had another handful of 3 or 4 friends who were college dropouts, smokers in college, just didn't look like they had their life together. All of them succeeded, became multimillionaires, had no business plans. But what
Mhm.
they did have was grit, heart, and no quit. And
Yeah.
that comes from discipline. That comes from pain and pressure and willing to fight through it because you really want to do it.
Mm. So, how does someone identify or figure out the process of starting a business? Like, how does someone provide value and how do they take that idea into a business? Because that's fucking hard. That's
It's
really, really,
hard.
it's really difficult. And everyone sort of is striving to, Abe. They want to get out of the 9 to 5 rat race. They don't want to be a slave wage forever.
Right.
But yeah, how does someone go from creating an idea to be able to create value?
Well, I would say having an idea is incredible. That's a great thing. And you have a lot of the billionaires from Shark Tank says your idea is great, but it doesn't mean anything. Selling it and bringing it to market means everything. Execution means everything, right? And there's a lot of people that say, you know, uh, you have to have the product perfect, make sure it looks great, make sure the presentation is there, make sure the packaging is there, make sure your price point is there, make sure all of the business etiquette is proper, make sure you put it in the right market category, know your customer base, know all these things, which those are great things to have, great tips. It's good to have these things. But you have another group of entrepreneurs that say, just get it off the ground.
Mm,
Make the first t-shirt. If it sucks, then you fix it on the next round. Find out if anyone will buy your t-shirt, right? So being able to get your product and actually have it made and done shows that you're headed into a direction. Now you can get better. But there's so many people that don't even they stay in dream phase forever. They don't create the product. For one, they don't know how. Two, they don't have money. They don't know how to do that. And most of the time that's not the issue. Most of the time they're their own mental block. They talk themselves out of not doing it because they're worried about other people judging them.
mm,
So a lot of the times it's not about your resources, it's about becoming resourceful with the people or everything that's around you. Tony
yeah.
Robbins said that. Tony Robbins said becoming resourceful is the key to success. Who's around you? How can that person help you? How can that person help you? That person is not going to help you though if you don't have any confidence because you don't even believe in yourself,
Mm,
right? So I think that we are always our biggest ally or nightmare. If we are not confident and really believe in what we're doing, our actions will show that because everyone will keep on coming up with reasons on why they're delaying and procrastinating. And at the end of the day, I've already learned to just do it and I'll fix it along the way and see how I get better.
mm, yeah. So, how does someone go about starting a business? So, learn from obviously the people that have obviously started a business and learn from them. Like, where do they
Yes. Well,
go? What would you suggest, like the steps someone should take to get it off the ground?
a lot of people might tell you do all of the basic procedures, trademark your product, start an LLC, register your name, get the trademark, get your website domain. You got all of these things that you're spending money on at the beginning, but don't have a product yet.
Mm,
So those are all of the steps that you normally would get. And that's what they're going to teach you in school. Get your things like that. I didn't start like that. I started getting a t-shirt and selling it out of the trunk of my car at the gym. And I did it backwards. After I sold 50 shirts, I ended up taking that. I bought my first car for $750 out of a prison. And I just started flipping the shirts, selling them without a legal entity. I had no legal entity. And I'm not telling people to go break the law and not do that, but you got to also see if your idea and your product is something that the market is going to want, right? And you have two options: to test it or to force feed it. And force feeding it means you need a lot more money. So
mm,
if you have enough money to do all of your steps, your procedures, then go ahead and do all of that. If you have the backing and the funding and a business plan to say we're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and by year 2 and 3 we're going to make up all our money and we'll grow, and you can do that. um but what you don't have on the business plan is how do you deal with stress? How do you deal with mistakes? How do you deal with lack of supply chain? How do you deal with not having access to your factory? Those are things you don't have on a business plan that you can't. It's like a gut check. You can't put gut check. So I'd always advise figure out how to get your product to become a reality. Once you get that product, now you start figuring out how do you trademark. And
mm,
nowadays, everything is online. Google. I literally Googled, how do you start a clothing line? And what popped up was printers printing t-shirts. So then it shows you, okay, call this number. This is a screen printer. They'll show you how to screen print t-shirts. This is your blank stores. This is where they sell blank t-shirts. Now
mm,
you mix them together and now you have a t-shirt. And then they'll tell you, well, you need to print 20, you need to print 100. So I literally started on Google, how do I start a clothing line? And the first thing that popped up was it sent me into the direction of producing. It didn't send me into the direction of trademark your brand, register your brand, get your EIN number, get your tax ID. It didn't do any of that.
yeah. 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 It's interesting too, Abe. You can now ask ChatGPT, you can ask that or some sort of artificial intelligence on the steps and the breakdown on how to start a business. You can,
To do all of that.
yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
amazing, man. Yeah, it really is. And your company, Abe, so Forever Faith, talk to me a little bit about it, mate.
Yes, well, as I stated, Forever Faith mindset of champions, more than anything, was a message that started from prison. And that message was Forever Faith. As I sat in prison, I played spades with all the inmates. And I remember one of the inmates was only like 2 weeks away from getting out. He was sad and he was crying. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And he says, "I'm getting out in less than 2 weeks and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have a job. How am I going to pay for the bills? I got kids. I can't survive out there." And he was crying. And I said, "Man, don't lose your faith. You got to have faith forever." And that's where the development, and I told him, "God gave me a message to deliver to you. Don't lose your faith." So I started like that. I started drawing clothing in prison. I started drawing the t-shirts. And before you knew it, when you're in alignment, when you're focused, when you're in prayer, when you're in connection with God, everything comes to you. It comes to you. There's no other way to explain it, right? That law of attraction, that law of manifestation. I put my focus in prison on creating a clothing brand. I get out of prison. I ask, there was no chat GTP then. I asked Google, how do you start a clothing line? Someone at the gym introduces me to a printer as well. So you think about it, God sends people. I didn't even share this with you, but there was a gentleman that came into the gym. I was a personal trainer. And the gentleman just asked me, how do I work on the equipment? How do I work this machine? And I said, "Oh, well, you do it like this." I helped him. This is an elderly man, probably in his 60s. And I said, like this and this, and I helped him. He said, "Thank you, young man." I said, "No problem, sir. I'm here to help you." He said, so he tells me, "You have a great personality. Do you have plans in the future? What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm glad that you asked." I said, "I just got out of prison. I'm on the ankle monitor, but God had given me a vision to inspire the world. I'm going to start a clothing brand to move the world." Everybody thought I was crazy at that point. And I had all this paperwork from prison that I saved of me drawing clothing. So I started showing him designs. I said, "Yeah, I was designing clothes in prison. You can see this and that." And he says, "Oh, wow, that's incredible." And that was it. He comes back a week or two later and he says, "Young man, I haven't stopped thinking about you. I actually prayed to God and I think God sent me into life to help you." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yes, I prayed and I feel like God sent me to help you." We sat down, we started talking, and he realized that I knew nothing about business. I knew nothing about anything. I just got out of prison, had a vision and a dream from God, and I was going to move the world. He says, "God sent me to help you. I'm not rich, but I have two credit cards for $40,000 each, and I'm going to give them to you. I'm going to invest into your company, and we're going to start this." He started that. He trademarked the business, got the website. But why did he do that? I had already sold 100 shirts in the gym. He saw me selling t-shirts out of the trunk of my car and there at the gym. Whenever I could, I'd sell a shirt for $20. And before you knew it, I had 15, 20 people in the gym wearing my shirt. So he noticed it. And that's where he had asked me, "What is Forever Faith? What is that?" I said, "That's the mission that God had given me." And he prays about it. He comes back. He said, "God sent me to help you, definitely." So because I thought about it, I spoke about it, I believed about it, I took action and did something, it became a real tangible situation for somebody to believe in me as well. Now, obviously, God was involved because there's no other explanation where somebody would give a convicted felon $80,000 in credit cards and just say, "Here you go."
Mm,
But what I would say is my sacrifice, my fasting, my connection, my prayer, my level of consciousness was at a completely different level of the programming that everybody goes through. So my vibes and my spirituality brought the journey together to become something real in the worlds of manifestation. People don't understand these things. They don't understand it. And, I don't think we've been taught truly how God works in our lives the right way either.
mm, yeah. Shit, man,
So
that's a remarkable story.
this is a true story. And,
Mm,
right after that happened, he says, "All right, you can quit your job, focus on this mission full time. You don't need to work here. You don't need money. I got money for you. I need you to be creative. I need you to think. I need you to take this brand all over the world." And He even told me, You can come live in my house. You don't have to pay rent." His wife thought he was crazy. His wife said, "How can you bring a convicted felon into our house?" His wife thought he was crazy. She went to church that next week, and the whole sermon he told me was about not judging other people and understanding that God sends people in our lives to make differences. So she literally told her husband, "I think God spoke to me today, and I think Abe is supposed to stay with us."
Mm, yeah.
And I told him, right? I told him the visions. I said, "Yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to go all over the world. We're going to do TV shows. I'm going to write books. I'm going to do this." Not even 4 months living with him, they called me do my first TV show in Los Angeles on Millionaire Matchmaker on Bravo.
Shit.
So everything started to happen exactly as I had explained to him. And that's how my life has been here the last 10 years.
Mm,
Lots of journey, lots of pressure, lots of struggle. Nothing is easy. And that's why I say, to be that entrepreneur, you can have the clean cut entrepreneur setup where you have your business plan and all of those things, which is good to have. I would advise to learn that. But the one thing that's more important, and I think any investor or any person starting a business, is they want to know what you're made of. Do you really believe in this mission? Or are you just going to give up the first or second time that something happens?
mm. Yeah. It's that grit, isn't it? It's the hard work. And going back to diamonds are built under pressure, it's just the sacrifices that you need to make, isn't it? Like anything in
That's
life,
it.
there's equal or greater costs in everything.
Yeah. And it's
Mm,
not easy. And I give people the benefit of the doubt and I understand the challenges and the obstacles. It's not easy. I understand. But I use football. In football, we hit each other. Everybody's hitting each other. Well, how hard of a hit can you handle without giving up?
mm,
And I
yeah.
played for over 20 years of hitting, just boom, 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 boom. And not 20 years, 10 years. Yeah, 10 years till college. But I realized that I didn't die after I got hit hard. I got hit, maybe I got knocked down, but I was able to bounce back. So once you understand the little bit of pain and suffering and pressure, and you understand that you didn't die, I had my cell phone cut off. I've been late on everything, gonna lose my car, but I didn't die. I went to prison behind bars. I didn't die.
Mm,
God gives me another chance and another day to bounce back, to come back stronger.
yeah. And that gentleman that helped you with your business idea, is he still in your life today?
Of course, he's Pops. I call him Pops. He calls me his son. He's in my book. He's in
Mm,
my book. I have a photo, and my story is in the book, so I talk about him.
mm,
And he's still in my life. I call him Pops. He's an investor, of course. He owns part of me. He owns part of me because, and now we're doing a lot more than just clothing. We're doing a hydration drink. We're doing music. We created Forever Faith Entertainment. I have an artist signed underneath the label. I just performed in Pakistan 3 months ago in front of 40,000 people.
fuck. Crazy, man.
It is
Crazy.
crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy, but grateful. We always
Mm,
be grateful for the basics. My prayers are still the same. I say, God, Father God, thank you for allowing me to wake up today. The difference in prison was that I would wake up in a prison cell and I'd at least have food to eat and I was able to shower. And I'm still grateful for that. And I remember that. So whether today's the most incredible day and we make a lot of money or we don't make any, I'm still the same and I'm still
mhm.
grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. So where can people find you, man? And, what if they wanna find out more information, where do they go?
Well, you guys can, go online, obviously, to Google or Chat GTP or, or any AI. You can type in Abe Cruz or foreverfaith.com is the website, abecruz.com. And you'll see everything there from music to our clothing, our nutrition line, hydration drink, music now. Check us out. More than anything, it's about the mission, and we encourage and we invite people to jump on and help us spread this message because this isn't about me. I'm just the guy who started it, but this is a global movement and we need the support of everybody.
Mm. Yeah. Love that, man. Abe, awesome conversation, man. I could talk to you for hours about
Yeah.
everything from bodybuilding to hitting rock bottom and overcoming adversity to entrepreneurship,
Yes.
business, ethics, everything, man.
Right.
I could talk to you for hours all day long about this stuff. But thank you
Yes.
so much, man, for jumping on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Abe. Cheers, man.
Cheers.